Ants. Ants.
Ants. Ants.
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking Ant-Man and the Wasp. Before I get into my review, I'm going to give you my initial reaction out of the theater with the special guest, and then we'll talk about the movie itself. Let me know your thoughts down below if you like this review and you want to drop a like. That would be cool. I had a really sweet intro planned. I was going to shrink myself and do a bunch of, but I got too lazy. So here's the reaction with the flick pick. John and I just saw Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and they gave us these little magnifying glasses. John, what are you going to do with yours?
You know what? I would prefer not to talk about that on camera.
Yeah, that's smart. I was going to say don't elaborate on that. So, John, we'll start with you, man. What's your first thought walking out of this film?
I really started to enjoy this movie during the second into the third act because it actually had a pulse and a reason for existing. I think a lot of things culminated, and up until that point, I sort of hated the movie. I did. Yeah.
It's one of the messiest, and this is not to get you guys not as excited about this film, but the first act, the first 30 minutes, is one of the messiest first acts I've ever seen in a Marvel movie. It was all over the place. I thought the visual effects were a complete mess. It gets you started on a weird note when it comes to the humor, and the characters are just awkward. Did I miss anything?
No, as far as the visual effects go, it feels like they weren't rendered until the second act of the film.
Yeah.
It just fell flat. You go to this epic other dimension known as the Quantumverse.
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
Quantum realm?
Quantum realm.
That sounds right.
It's in a galaxy far, far away. I'm sure we could talk about that.
We will.
But you think once you're there, you're going to interact with the environment, almost like Avatar.
Uh-huh.
You talk to whales, you swim, you climb trees. Here it just feels like two actors standing in front of a green screen, expositional dialogue.
Yeah.
Here's what's happening. That's what it felt like until the second act.
Awkward lighting, and I think that's an issue. You
Yeah.
mentioned Avatar. We just watched Avatar, and I've watched it like 3 times now. We've watched it, and we're living, that is absolutely true, in this crazy, immersive, 3D, incredible world. And then we go into Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you mentioned those scenes, man. Some of those emotional and integral moments to the movie, it's ruined by the visuals.
Yes, it really takes you right out of it. You're like, okay, but his hair light is a different color than the background right now.
Yeah.
It looks like a stage play in high school, almost at times, doesn't it?
It looks bad.
Yeah.
But okay, that being said, right, it gets, but well, that was really rough. It gets better. It gets so much better. And there was somebody that came in the movie that made it better, John. What was his name again?
Oh, Kane, Krang.
This guy.
Oh, Jonathan Majors.
It's that guy.
I thought we were talking about Krang.
Krang?
But we'll talk about him later. Let's talk about Kang.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Kang is a beast of a villain, and they established that off the bat. You know who he is, you know what his goal is. We can see the future of the MCU as clear as day after this movie, and when he came in the movie, that's when everything really started to. And that's when the movie gets more emotional too, right? You start to feel the stakes. Paul Rudd gets some nice moments. Michelle Pfeiffer gets some nice moments, and for me, the movie got a lot better.
It's like it finally had a spine for the first time.
It did.
And I'm just saying, Kang sort of reminds me of Darth Vader. And
the entrance.
If you're talking about villains,
Yeah.
that's a good imposing character to have.
I think this guy is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and that was really made clear. And I was afraid, like, how are they going to do his powers? How is Ant-Man going to fight him? I thought they handled that fairly well.
It was balanced. It was balanced, and it wasn't. He wasn't too powerful. That's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
There was a believability to it, but also he sort of had a personality, a take on his own ideology.
He did.
And you might not agree with mass genocide, but he made a good point, I guess. I don't know.
It's kind of like the Thanos thing, right?
Yeah,
You understand why he does it, but you don't agree with it.
Yeah.
He just likes to rule things. And here's the thing about Kang. It's not only him when the movie starts to get a little bit better. There's another character, too, that I had to warm up on like I did the film. That character is MODOK, and I think this may be divisive. He's ridiculous. He looks terrible until he puts the face mask on. But he was really funny.
He was, yeah.
I thought he was funny.
Yes. I hated the concept. I hated seeing him in the trailer.
Yeah.
In the movie, after about 10 minutes of screen time, I was like, this is one of the best parts about the film. It just goes for it. It's unapologetic. And some of the humor,
Yeah.
I would say they pushed the limit just ever so slightly, which I did appreciate in a Disney film.
They pushed it. It's some things are going to go over kids' heads, which is okay, and other moments the adults are going to be cracking up. Right, a certain amount of jokes miss the mark. but some of the jokes really hit, and when they hit hard. Our screening had a 1-second delay between the audio and the video, so that was really annoying, and it kind of hurt the experience. So I think this deserves another watch at some other point, not anytime soon. But I do believe when it comes to hitting on the humor, which is what the Ant-Man franchise has always done, I think this movie gets a lot of it right.
Well, where would you rank this out of all three Ant-Man movies? Ant-Man and the Wasp at times movies.
I think Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second film, is still the worst
By
for
far.
me.
One of the worst Marvel films.
Yeah, I did not like it. But I still hold the first Ant-Man. I think it's what Ant-Man should be, close, small-scale story, literally, and I still prefer that one. But this one's kind of right in the middle. Yeah, I'm mixed on it. I'm mixed on the movie, but it's right in the middle.
Like I said, this is like the Saturday morning fever dream version of Ant-Man. This is as over-the-top and bombastic as you can ever take the character, and they go for it. At least they went for it, and I can say, okay, thank you.
Certain moments you're going to be cringing, other moments you're going to be cheering and clapping, just like the characters did in this film in the Rebellion. That the storyline with the Rebellion.
I kind of forgot that happened. And it didn't doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, we'll elaborate on this, but you'll follow the Flick Pick on YouTube and TikTok and MySpace. What else?
OnlyFans?
OnlyFans. He has feet pics, and so do I.
Do, yeah.
Sometimes we collab. So
the magnifying glass will come in handy.
Oh, it will. Oh, let me tell you, buddy, it will. Mostly for me. Thank you.
Where are we going with this?
Thank you guys for watching. Follow us on our journey with magnifying glasses. Come here, buddy. So let's elaborate on a few things here, not the magnifying glass part. This movie is rated PG-13, as the other two Ant-Man movies are, as the entire MCU is for violence, action, and language. But when it gets dark, and that's really when Jonathan Majors comes in as Kang, it gets dark. And then the humor at points will get dark. So they really push the limits for an Ant-Man movie. And when I say the humor is good, when I say the movie is really funny, it's a very different type of humor. We're not only missing some of those side characters that we knew in real life in the first two Ant-Man movie, we're missing our reality. We start there at the beginning, and then the rest of the film pretty much is in the quantum realm. So they're relying on green screen and a lot of CGI and a lot of effects. And I said it in the reaction, I'll say it again. It's just hard when it's so inconsistent. And I mean certain moments, and specifically the battle in the third act, which was, again, you're relying on a storyline that you set up in the beginning, then you really didn't come back to until the main end, and that was probably one of my bigger flaws within the storylines, but it's still epic. And the battle, some things that Ant-Man has to do in this battle, and then not completely ruining where Kang is with his power set. I do wish they would have explained certain elements of his power set more, but when I saw that first trailer, I'm like, Kang and Ant-Man, they're not going to match up very well. Kang should absolutely wreck him. So I think they did a good job with keeping those things based in reality, even though the rest of this movie is so outlandish. And when I say outlandish, I mean, I said The Fifth Element. You have characters that are wacky, zany. One in particular, he is obsessed with holes. It's an alien goo creature obsessed with holes. You're going to think I'm crazy until you see this movie. But someone like that started out, I'm like, rolling my eyes. Okay, what are we doing? And I felt the same way about MODOK. I started out, I'm like, okay, MODOK looks terrible. And I don't think MODOK looks a lot better as the movie goes. When the mask is on, it's fine. I think it works extremely well. And you know what? I won't even sit here and say it strays very far away from the comics. It's just when you're translating that to live action, sometimes it falls flat. But the route that they go with MODOK, the tone that they keep, whether you like what they did with the character or not, they do make it more similar to the comics than I expected them to, and I actually really liked some of the MODOK scenes towards the end. I do feel like there's a bit of wasted potential there, but there's one in particular in the third act I said, that's what I wish this entire movie would have been. The perfect balance between humor and epicness. And I mean, Kang is walking through a room haunting. You can feel his presence. You can see Jonathan Majors is giving it everything he possibly can. And I love that. But again, the movie doesn't really start to work until Kang enters the room. Michelle Pfeiffer has a lot to do here, which I really liked. I do think Paul Rudd is good in this movie. Someone like a William Jackson Harper had a nice role in there. But again, some of those side characters, some of those alien quantum realm creatures were not necessarily expanded upon in a way that they should have been to make you care about them more. Again, there is a rebellion-ish storyline at the beginning that they just stray so far away from. You don't necessarily get to know more about the characters. You get some at the beginning, but I'm like, why didn't we go back to this? Why did we go so far away from what was somewhat interesting about the first act? And then someone like a Catherine Newton, that's one of the better part of the films as well. That relationship between Scott and his daughter. There's something there with Cassie to where she was a part of something on Earth that somewhat translates into this rebellion storyline. That's something else I wish they would have expanded upon. And then you have lines of dialogue that just completely fall flat. So I think the script is something that is an issue with this movie. The tonal balance is probably the biggest issue with the film. But thankfully, instead of starting out great and getting worse as it progresses, it starts out not great with a very weak first act. It kind of meanders at times in the second act, but when it picks up, it really picks up, and it ends on a very strong note. So the movie gets better. It's just for some, will it get better enough for you to remain invested in the movie? And I think with where the MCU is right now, some people are going to be really frustrated. In the beginning, they're not going to come around, and that's fine. Opinions are opinions. Before I give you my score, thanks for watching. We did one of these with Black Adam. It went well, so I'm doing another one. If you guys have liked this video and you have commented on this video, your favorite MCU Phase 4 movie, then you are officially in the running for this Green Goblin pop figure, but be sure you're following me too, because if you're not, then you're not going to win it. But I want to pick somebody, I want to send it out, so that is your way to enter. Before I give you that score, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to leave your thoughts. Are you excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? Quantumania starts out on a really messy note. The story and VFX are all over the place until Kang enters the picture. His haunting presence allows the film to find focus and become pretty entertaining. The third act is much better, and the humor mostly works. One thing I will say, the direction of the MCU is very clear after this movie, so it does a nice job of setting those things up. 2 post-credit scenes, one mid-credit, not mid. That's what the kids say, they say mid. 67. That's my score. It's fun. I think John said it best. It does feel like a Saturday morning cartoon. Where I'm at on Thor Love and Thunder right now, this movie is better than that. So it has more going for it, and I think the humor works a bit better. I'm rambling at this point. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.